All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's 9 o'clock. Chris?
Good morning, directors and Palisades community. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the August 17th, 2026 Fiscal Oversight Committee. The first order of business we have is bond issue, and I'd like to welcome our friends from PFM. If you'd introduce yourselves.
Absolutely. Well, it's a pleasure to be here again this morning. With me as well is Declan from our office. We just wanted to give you a real brief update on kind of some of the numbers we've been playing in the background over the last couple of months. Two of the scenarios are the same scenarios that were presented about 2 months ago at your June meeting. And then I think subsequently there have been some recommendations or requests for some additional scenarios. We wanted to walk through them as well. So starting on page 2, again, just to talk about interest rates. Interest rates have been continuing to be somewhat volatile. However, we still have been able in the last several weeks to get some very good participation on some of the more recent bond issues that we've been doing. So recently we've done some bond issues for the Chamonix School District, for example, as well as a number of other school districts and municipalities in the southeastern PA area. So while interest rates are still hovering around all-time historic averages, when we look over the past 30 years or so, they do continue to be volatile. But the good news is that investor demand remains present, and we have had no issues in the past couple of months selling the bonds that we've had coming to the market. So that's the key takeaway, and I would say the most important thing. Again, just as a refresher, page 3 is your existing debt. And as we sit here today, before we talk about layering on any additional potential debt. So your debt portfolio, not surprisingly to you all, is very short and very simplistic in the sense of you've got one bond issue remaining. There's about 3 years left on it, final maturity in 2028. Those bonds have, again, fixed rate. So there's no interest rate risk. There's no exposure, if you will, to the current market. And you're paying about $630,000, $650,000 of local effort annually on that bond. I think that's important, an important distinction between the top half of this page and the bottom half. Top half is principal plus interest. We refer to that as debt service. And then on the bottom half of the page, we refer to the bottom half as local effort. So that's the same principal plus interest. On the bottom half, we're deducting out any state reimbursement that you get from the old PlanCon process. So again, PlanCon is currently in moratorium. It has been in moratorium for the last several years. So any future debt issuances that we talk about here, whether it be today, next month, next year, whatever the case might be, we are assuming that any new capital projects do not receive any PlanCon reimbursement. Switching to the next couple pages. So I'm going to breeze through this. Again, we've already kind of talked about a lot of this. One of the important things to remember as a school district is you all are able to borrow on a tax-exempt basis. Uncle Sam, the IRS, gives you that gift, but like any good gift, it comes with some stipulations. The main one being that expenditure test that you see in 4A. So again, being that you all are able to borrow at tax-exempt rates, the IRS says in order for you to do so, you need to have a reasonable expectation to spend 85% of the borrowed proceeds within 3 years. So given where we currently are with the projects that the district is looking at, as well as kind of just the magnitude of the projects, we, as well as your bond counsel, King Spry, Kevin Reed, who we've been in communication with, do not have any sort of issues or concerns that the district will meet that benchmark, but nonetheless, it's something we always like to remind you all of that. The next two sections regarding arbitrage rebate and bank qualification. If you recall, there are a few magic numbers when it comes to tax-exempt borrowings. One number is 15 million, the other number is 10 million. In the case of arbitrage rebate considerations, to the extent you borrow less than $15 million in the calendar year, any interest that you generate on those bond proceeds while they're kind of sitting in your account waiting to be spent on the project, any interest that you generate on that money, you can save, you can keep. You don't need to rebate any of it back to the IRS. So to the extent you're able to earn, $50,000 of interest while it's sitting in your kind of accounts waiting to be spent, that's money that you can then spend towards the projects and further reduces the cost of those projects or any other projects that you might have. The other magic number, and these numbers are not mutually exclusive, they can be both, is if we're borrowing $10 million or less in a calendar year, we get to call the bonds or designate the bonds as bank qualified. That's a long-winded way of saying it's a qualification that the investors can rely on, and it allows the banks and investors to offset a portion of the interest that they generate from their taxes. So because they're able to kind of glean some benefit from the bonds, they're able to pass that interest rate on to you all. So when it makes sense and we're able to do so, we like to designate the bonds because we get a slightly lower interest rate. Perhaps more importantly, we get a shorter call feature. If you remember from previous transactions, the call date, every bond that we sell has a call date. And that's the earliest date in which the bonds can be either paid off, if you have cash available to do so, or refinanced for interest rate savings, if it makes sense. So we always like to try and get the shortest call feature possible because it gives you all the flexibility in the future to potentially refinance for savings, as we've done a number of times here at Palisades. In the case of a bank qualified issue, which again we're planning on doing with this potential financing, the average call feature for a bank qualified bond is 5 years. If we were $10,001,001 and we were not able to, obtain that bank qualification status, the call feature would be anywhere from 7 to 10 years. So again, we're talking about $5.75 million here. So we're able to meet both of those kind of magic numbers, which is a good thing for the district. The last item on this page, the reimbursement resolution. I believe you all adopted this back in your June meeting, so we don't need to go over it any further. So flipping to the next page, parameters resolution. Again, we kind of talked about this back in June, but what we would envision is potentially coming back at your September 16th regularly scheduled board meeting. And in front of the full board for your consideration would be this maximum parameters resolution. What that does is it sets forth the parameters or the framework and the terms, if you will, that we, the financing team, need to achieve in order to execute the financing. So basically it's the pre-approval, if you will, to go out and sell the bonds if and when we meet the parameters that would be outlined in the parameter sale document. Again, this has been the process by which Palisades has sold bonds in the past, and really the reason why we do the parameters resolution is because then it doesn't tie us to a board meeting that day. If we were not to approve the parameters and we were just going to move forward with what we refer to as a live sale, we, the financing team, would be, wrong word here, but pigeonholed, if you will, to coming back to you and selling bonds at a regularly scheduled board meeting date. And given that you all typically only meet once a month, we're kind of wed to those once a month dates. So to the extent the market is volatile or off on one day, we have a choice of either going ahead and selling bonds because we don't expect it to get any better, or we have to wait another month to go out and price the bonds. So again, this provides, the parameters resolution provides financing team as well as the district the most flexibility to enter the market at the most opportune time. Timeline is below. So as I mentioned, to the extent that there was a parameters resolution that the board acted favorably on in September, we would then be looking to price the bonds or lock in the interest rates the following month in the October timeframe. And then from the time we price the bonds to the time we settle, it takes about a month to go through the filing process with DCED, the Department of Community and Economic Development, who ultimately have to give their approval before we can settle the bonds. So I've been long-winded so far, but any questions before we jump into kind of the meat and potatoes of the presentation?
Can I just go back and clarify what had been shared, I believe, before at a previous meeting? The going back and including expenses that have been paid into the bond, would that be from the September date?
Correct.
Okay.
And specifically, it's 90 days before that date. So if you approve round numbers, if you approved it June 1st, it would go back to March 1st.
Okay.
And yes, that already occurred. You already took that action. That's already been
Oh, so
locked
that's
in.
already been locked in.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
So kudos to you all. One less thing to do.
Okay.
Any other questions before we look at some numbers? Okay. Pages 6 and 7, the blue and the yellow, are the same set of numbers that we showed back in June. So this is, again, sizing for the same $5.75 million of project funds. And what we're doing here is we're utilizing some available district reserves to offset the first 3 years of interest expense, such that from a budgetary perspective, you all see no impact to your budget for the first 3 years. And then after that, we structure the bonds to be around $560,000, $570,000 a year thereafter. And the rhyme and the reason for that was we just wanted to give you all some budgetary relief again in your budget so that you don't have any negative budgetary impact here over the next 3 years until your existing debt pays off, because we're taking care of that in column 5. And then thereafter, your debt service line item in your budget decreases by, again, round numbers, $100,000. So again, looking from left to right, column 3 is your existing local effort that we talked about from the previous page. Column 4 would be the proposed debt service, because again, we're not assuming any sort of plan on reimbursement. Column 4 is the new debt service on this proposed financings with this wraparound debt service structure. Column 5 are the one-time kind of cash reserves that we're assuming the district utilizes to offset the initial interest expense. And then column 6 would be your new net debt service at the end of the day once all the dust settles. You can see importantly, with this scenario, there's no impact to your budget from a debt service perspective. And once we get to fiscal year 2030, there's actually a reduction in your debt service budget from 600, round number 650,000 to about 560,000. Any questions on that scenario? Hearing none. Page 7 is more or less utilizing the same structure, but because we're in this scenario not assuming any one-time cash being used to offset the initial debt service expense, we're wrapping more tightly around the new debt service. So if you see in column 3, again, same local effort. Column 4, because we have, or the district's budget realizes the initial interest expense associated with the financing, there would be an increase needed in the district's debt service budget to accommodate. So because of that, because of that necessary increase to about $930,000, we can more tightly, if you will, wrap the amortization of the remaining years in 2030 to 2036 to be more in line with that new budgetary line item in your budget. So pros and cons from this scenario to the previous scenario is, in this scenario, your debt is shorter. You know, it only goes out to about 37 as opposed to 43. And you pay less debt service over the life of the financing. You see the total down at the bottom of column 4, but not surprisingly, the annual payments are greater. And as a result, it would have an impact to your debt service budget. So again, think of it in some ways kind of like a home mortgage, the difference between a 20-year mortgage versus a 30-year mortgage. Going out longer is going to get you a lower kind of annual payment, but it's going to have more debt service or interest expense paid over the life. Similar concept exists here. So again, those were the 2 scenarios that we had shown back in June. I believe since that meeting, there were some additional requests from the committee members to potentially see some other scenarios, which is what we have shown on pages 8 and 9. So similar to the previous 2 scenarios, pages 8 and 9, the only difference between those 2 is whether or not we utilize some one-time district reserves to offset the initial interest expense and whether we don't. So on page 8, instead of using a wraparound debt service structure, in this particular case, we're using a level debt service structure. So again, more akin to a true home mortgage where your payments are equal every year. So that's what you're seeing in column 4. So again, borrowing the same $5,750,000, amortizing it over around 20 years, your annual payments would be about $475,000 annually. When you take that estimated payment and you layer it on top of your existing debt in column 3, you're left with column 6. So you can see, because we're not utilizing any district reserves in column 5, there's a 2-year blip, I'll call it, in 2028 and 2029, where your debt service goes from about $650,000 up to around 1.1. But then once you kind of get over that hurdle, your payments are level thereafter at $465,000. Any questions up until now before we go over the last scenario? Okay. The purple scenario on page 9, again, the same approximately 20-year level debt service structure. The only difference now, as you can see in column 5, we are assuming some one-time cash outlay to offset the initial interest expense to the tune of about $1 million. But you can see in doing so, again, your column 4 is still the same as the previous page or thereabouts. You layer on, if you will, or deduct the use of about $1 million of district reserves to offset that initial expense. And you're left in column 6 with no impact to your budget through and including 29. And then the same kind of debt service drop off to about $450,000 thereafter for the remaining life of the loan. So really, from our perspective, the question becomes two: is the structure, level debt service versus a wrap, and then 2, does the district want to contribute some amount of cash to help offset the initial expense of the project? And I should also note from a structuring perspective, you know, we can move forward as part of the financing team. We can move forward to the parameters, et cetera, without necessarily needing to pin down whether or not the district wants to use its cash, some one-time cash reserves for the purposes of financing. We can proceed without necessarily knowing that piece until, you know, more closely before we price the bonds. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I'd like us to decide today, if we can,
There you go.
on which scenario makes sense to you, and if you're ready to move forward with a parameters resolution. Those are sort of the 2 questions.
And again, assuming that you all would like to move forward and you pick a scenario, we can then obviously will relay that to Kevin Reed and the King Spry team so that they can begin drafting all the documents that are needed. I say all the documents, the parameters resolution that's needed that would occur at your September meeting. And then they would also take care of placing the ad in the paper, the necessary advertising requirements to make sure that any resolution that you may approve is done so legally. We will alert them with, depending on how this meeting here this morning goes. But high level, that's really all I had. Obviously, to the extent you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please, I'm here to answer questions. So let me know.
Thank you.
I'd like to question or whatever. All these scenarios cost us about $2 million over the life. I'm looking at the projects we have on the books right now, the auditorium stuff, which is drawing down our unreserved fund balance. Do we need to carry a $5 million, $7 million, whatever it is, fund balance?
5.75.
I mean, it's basically keeping by doing this, we're keeping the fund balance that we had last year, basically. Do we need to keep that much?
Between ending the year at 18 million and ending the year at 23 million.
Okay, so that's my thought. It's not really a concern. It's just a thought that if we don't need this cash sitting in, I mean, we'll spend if we get these bonds, we'll spend it. So there's no issue there. But it does keep the unreserved fund balance high.
Yes.
Do we need it that high for projects in the near future?
I would say yes.
All right, the next thought is that instead of spending $450,000 a year on the bonds, we don't take the bonds, but we put the money in a fund. And over a period of 10 years, we'll have the same amount of money without the interest cost, if you follow me. So I mean, if I had
That's assuming that everything stays the same and we don't have any other obligations that come down that we have to dip into that bond fund.
that is correct. If there's something that that's gonna cost us $5 million in 2 years. Instead of taking the bond issue out in 2 years, we take it out now, is what's happening.
At more favorable rates.
I mean, you look at the way the rates are, I don't think they're gonna change that much, maybe half a point down or half a point up. These folks do a good job of getting the lowest rate we can. I guess I would like it to be out there to maybe a worst case scenario in the next 5 years as to what kind of capital outlays we'd have or expect to have or could have. And then work this into that, paying for that if it would happen.
Well, I would think the flip side of that, Jim, is that if in fact that within 5 years that we have a substantial amount of reserves, we can call this bond and it could be paid off. So all the projects
We
that
won't have the reserve because it's been spent to pay the bond.
if we don't dip down in fund balance. In other words, if our
Right.
fund balance
We
goes
keep
in a
our
different
fund
direction,
balance.
right?
It all comes down to how much unreserved fund balance we think we
Right.
need.
So,
That's the whole reason we're having this
Yes.
discussion.
Right.
Exactly.
So,
and I guess the next question, or one of the questions we should ask is like, what's the comfortable number that we want to be within our fund balance?
yes,
And what's the threshold that we don't want to be below?
yes.
And so we had projections already last fall, or in the spring, excuse me, where we would be based on all the projects that are coming down the pike.
Well, the projects, including the middle school auditorium, are basically paid using the current fund balance.
Correct.
So at the end of those projects, what are we gonna have left, I guess?
18 million.
So at the end of those projects, we're still gonna have 18 million, or we're still gonna be using $1 million, $1.5 million for feasors. Maybe we use some more for healthcare.
Maybe we use some more
I think,
money.
yeah, 18 million at this point is kind of high.
And I would also note that if you decide to use, if you go with the blue scenario, for instance, or the purple scenario, that would also require, the blue scenario around 700,000 and purple scenario around $1 million of, again, one-time reserve that will also presumably come out of your unrestricted fund balance, or another one of your various fund balance. So you can still be, in those two scenarios, utilizing some amount of district reserves towards the project. It would just be from a budgetary perspective as opposed to actually reducing the borrowing, the borrowing.
So we're, along with that, we're adding $500,000 to $600,000 to the budget every year. Well, we're carrying an additional. If we don't take a bond, the budget totals will go down by $450,000.
After year 3 or
After
4.
year 3 or 4,
Right.
yes.
Right.
We do this, it stays flat. It keeps going.
Do we have any other questions and or concerns from other committee members?
That being said, the scenario that I would be in favor of is the one that has the least amount of local effort, which is the yellow one. No, that's,
The 11-year debt.
yeah. It's a toss up between that one and I guess the purple. Yeah. They have the least impact down the road.
How do the other committee members feel?
While we're looking at them, those are the two I chose as well. It was the yellow and the purple. If we don't want to, we want to try to save some more money annually, but I think the increase in the annual payments, it would absolutely be the yellow. If we're okay with assuming an extra million
$410,000.
dollars for a 1.4 on debt servicing over the lifetime of the loan, it would be the purple,
400,000.
400,000, excuse me.
But
And the purple would give us more flexibility, but to say after 5 years, everything is hunky-dory and we can pay it off, then we pay it off. And that number would come down.
correct?
Correct.
Yes.
I would recommend the purple for the most flexibility.
I like the purple as well, truth be told.
If we're gonna do it.
We vote it up or vote it down, just need some direction.
I vote for the purple.
You see the three committee members, right?
Yeah.
Scott?
Um, I mean, for the sake of moving things forward at this moment, I guess I'd be okay with the purple. I'm questioning whether the right thing to do is to do this or to do it at this amount. But, for the sake of moving things forward, I'll go with the purple for now, but not sure where my vote's gonna be when the total day is done.
And your second question, Chris?
Well, are we moving forward for parameters resolution or not? That's the next logical step.
Mhm.
We need to make a move or decide we're not moving.
Right.
Well, if they get the interest rate down to 2%, we'll go for it.
That's
Do our
not,
best.
that's
Can we
not
set
gonna
that
happen.
parameter?
We already cut the project size, so it only includes the treatment plant and the Palms Auditorium. The rest will come from fund balance.
So we're talking parameters.
Right, I'm in favor of, I'm in favor of it.
And just, again, just for a little bit of a refresher on the parameters, and then we'll talk about it, but since it's been a few years since you've done the parameters, if we're approving a loan, if the ending borrowing amount is gonna be about 5.75 million, it's likely that the parameters amount that you all will be approving or would be considering your September meeting might be closer to 7.5. That gives us the flexibility to structure the bonds as needed, but again, the intent and in no situation would we ever issue the full amount of the parameters. It's just a requirement that we need to follow the state. So we would only ever be approving or issuing the 5.75. But because we need the flexibility of the state to structure the bonds appropriately, it'll probably be for closer to 7 or 7.5. Again, that's typical, what we did last time with Palisades, but just so there's no shock or anything like that when you see a borrowing amount for quote unquote borrowing amount or approval amount. The rule of thumb that the state gives us is take whatever you think you're gonna borrow and basically add 20% to that. That gets you to around that $7 million number. Again, it's full disclosure.
Linda, what do you think?
So I am not, okay, I've stated this before. I was asking for this information to be brought to us because I know that there were board members who were not comfortable with us going and lessening our fund balance. That made them quite nervous. You can't have everything. So, I am much more inclined myself personally, on a personal level, to go with the shorter amount of time. So for me, it would be the yellow scenario. I don't, though I understand what you're saying, I think a little bit about flexibility, and yet as a district, we're not a generating institution. We take tax dollars and we distribute them. So that one's a hard thing to try to figure out. When I look at this and I go, okay, so we have this bond issue that we pay now in the 630 some thousand plus in our budget this year. So that was in addition to, in our budget this year, having capital projects at the 9, what were our capital projects?
7.
Oh, 7.
Hold on a second.
7 something. Okay,
7.2 million.
7.2. Okay, so if we get through the next 3 years with that payment and then that goes away and we're sitting at, I would think as a district, we could be comfortable with that. In order to maintain the fund balance. I mean, that's, for me, that's basically the underlying thing, is to help people feel comfortable that we have a reserve, but we're dispersing this over a number of years. But I'm not a fan of going long term. So, but I will go with the purple scenario.
Okay. So we'll get in touch with, as a wrap up, we'll get in touch with Kevin Reed to get the parameters resolution written up for September. And I don't know which we'll do. We might have Kevin come to the finance and you guys come to the full board meeting, or vice versa.
Yep, we're happy to do whichever, so. But we'll get things rolling with Kevin and his team, and we'll look forward to seeing you in September.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your time.
And can I
Good
just
job.
ask that, can you supply the committee or the full board really with where you see fund balance going to be? Okay, like sort of
5
both
years?
scenarios. What's that?
5 years, 3 years?
5 probably is the best way. You know, like, we don't do this, here's what you're probably looking at.
Right.
And if you do this, here's what you're sort of looking at.
I'll work something up for the next finance meeting.
Okay. All right. I mean, it's, you know, there's some gray area in there, but I know that would help me. So. And just so that I'm clear on that vote one, does that mean then you vote for that 100% for doing this? Yes.
Immediately before he was ready to order the panel board in early May, they said, oh, the 2-week timeline that we gave you is no longer valid. You won't have it until the beginning of September, which he recognized as completely unacceptable for our project's timeline. Therefore, he found an alternate provider who was able to expedite fabrication of that electrical panel. However, it was at a significant cost increase over the originally specified panel. He made the choice at that time to go forward with the more expensive panel. Again, project timeline being absolutely critical. And this change order comes to you at a time when the panel is physically installed at the plant and it is awaiting NetEd to stop playing games and connect our electrical service. Currently, they're supposed to do it tomorrow. Some of the increase of that has been offset by change order number 4, which is a credit in the district's favor for the generator. The original generator specified for the project was significantly larger in physical size than the existing generator. However, the one that has been provided, there were 3 different manufacturers that were acceptable for the project. The one that was selected actually fit on the existing concrete pad. And so we made the determination in the field to retain that existing pad, which is in good condition. Like I said, adequate size. There was no need to tear it out and put a new one in. So that generates a credit in your favor, which offsets a portion of the increase from change order number 3 for that panel. The other 2 smaller change orders, change order number 1 is driven by there's an actual drain line that comes from building number 1 into the treatment plant. Our as-built documentation of the configuration of that pipe was not consistent with what was discovered once they dug it up. So there were some changes associated with different fittings and parts to connect that to our new influent pump station. And then change order number 2 is for a breaker change in the panel after the panel was fabricated. That was driven by the fact that the treatment plant itself, during design and bidding of the project, we were told that it would have a 300 amp requirement for its main control panel. That requirement was decreased by the time it reached final design from the plant manufacturer. And that information came to us later than was ideal. So they actually had to make an alteration to the control panel, the main distribution panel, to accommodate a smaller breaker, smaller wiring to the plant.
I appreciate myself. Folks should come stand over here.
Oh.
I appreciate
I can come
myself.
stand over here.
Yeah.
I didn't know where you wanted me.
Yeah, that's good. The breakdown and the transparency of all of these things. With a huge project like this, though I know we've had issues prior to this, in the whole workings of everything, I find this to be reasonable. There's never a project that goes without these unexpected things. So I don't take issue with this at all.
I see this look. This is a med ed. They have proven all of your predictions accurate. They have been very frustrating. And I can only say in the contractor's defense, they have not taken that lightly. You know, they were putting out, the applications went in for this service upgrade in March and April. The district paid the fees to the electric company for the upgrade well in advance of when we would have needed it. I have been told that they were out on the site multiple times, that they, Med Ed, were out on the site multiple times to inspect what it needs, yet they have put us off twice, and the last time they showed up, you're gonna love it, they decided the transformers were wrong. We are extremely frustrated. At this point, Med Ed has said that they will be there tomorrow with the correct transformers to do the installation. At the same point, they have delayed our startup, the beginning of our startup efforts. The contractor has made provisions for temporary power. The A3 MBR plant manufacturers people are going to be on site tomorrow to start their startup procedures, to begin the startup on the plant. So if Med Ed does not come through tomorrow, temporary power will be provided through generators. Our generator has not yet arrived on the project. It is due late August, early September, but we do not have an exact date. We did in the contract tell our contractors when we bid the project that if the generator was not present on site before startup, that they were responsible to provide us with temporary power. So that is already accounted for.
That's Med Ed.
Wow, that's the contract.
That's the
That's the
contract.
Contractor's gonna
Our
take care.
our contractor is gonna make
Make
sure
sure,
that
okay.
that you have power. Twining has been extremely good about communication throughout the project. Their electrical subcontractor, JWK, has also been very good with communication. So these guys haven't left us guessing. I will warn you that there may be 2 additional change orders that I am aware of on the project. One will be a credit. So there's a chemical being used in our process that Al ordered on behalf of the contractor. Contractor's responsible under the contract to provide it, but because of the account structure for the chemical provider, it was more straightforward for Al to order it on your account. So there will be a credit for the amount coming. There's also potential for a change order for sewage pumping. So one of the things that we provided for in the bid itself for clarity, the contractor was responsible to have all sewage that comes into the plant under construction hauled away at his expense. But because of the potential for I&I rainfall to impact the flows, we told them that if I&I drove them over, we gave them a certain number. So there was an allowance volume that they were given. If it went over that volume through no fault of theirs, they would be entitled to reimbursement for those expenses. It may go over that volume. I haven't received numbers yet that said it did. But there could potentially be a change order for that as well. So as I'm currently aware, there may be 2 additional change orders that are presented at a later time.
But all that being said, it's gonna be ready to roll by the second week in September, first week in September.
By
2 weeks.
startup procedures will be happening the rest of this week. My hope is that Med Ed will not fail us again. that our full power, our service will be online. And I'm hoping that the plant is starting to receive sewage next week. We are all very nervous about first day of school coming up because our temporary provisions just aren't up
Can't handle the
to,
flow.
they're not up to it. I mean, they can, but we would have to pump, the truck would have to be in there multiple times a day to make sure that we don't have an overflow. So contractors, we're all on pins and needles with MedEd, but really great communication from the contractors has allowed the project to stay on schedule and go pretty smoothly.
Good.
So it's just, we're all very hopeful. Whatever your favorite methods of getting outside help, we need all the positive energy we can get with it.
Well, I'm okay with the change orders. As presented.
Scott?
So you and I had discussed this over the phone, and I actually thought this was coming to buildings and grounds. It's fine that we're discussing it here. That was just a change from what I had. I have a problem with the change order 3, the electrical panel. So, yeah, I have a problem with that.
I have a question. I'm sorry, your first name was that?
Crystal.
Chris, I see here on your email messaging, all right, you have a 300 amp breaker, can't be adjusted to meet the new feeder size. So that was back in June that this was discovered, okay? And you're looking at a 2-aught feeder cables coming in, and the breaker specified is a 400 amp frame. Are you telling me that the breaker specified was 400 amp before all this happened?
So that was based on the original electrical panel sizing that we received from A3.
Right. And then right below it, it says 200 amp frame breaker basically is not going to cut it.
So as I understand, and I'm not the best person to explain all of this, it had to be explained to me.
Okay.
But the physical size of the connections on the breaker
Mm-hmm.
were part of the issue. The other is if your breaker is too much larger than your load size, it can't adequately protect your load.
Right.
So they needed to decrease the size of the breaker. And that's where it loses me about why it couldn't just be pulled out, like one pulled out and the other plugged in. But I know part of it was the wire connections are specific to the breaker size.
So if we can go back to change order number 3 that Director Freeman brought up, they're looking for $8,500 because they had to increase the amperage size of that panel.
No.
At a decrease.
No, so change order 3 is specifically related to having to change supplier of the panel because of
Oh, right,
the lead time.
right. Got
So
it.
the supplier and the manufacturer of the internal components was the driver in that. Instead of the original 2-week lead time that his supplier A provided him, Square D, the manufacturer of the components that would have been in the panel, themselves came back and said, you're not going to get your parts until September. And because that was completely unacceptable for our project timeline, the electrical contractor went to a different brand, a different supplier, supplier C, and they were able to provide it within the necessary timeline, but at this increased expense.
So I want to go back again to that June email then. 300 amp breaker,
So the June email is,
pump station feeder,
the
subject,
June email goes with change order 2.
right.
doesn't
But
it?
the reason why I'm bringing that up is because did you all go to a 400 amp service?
The 400 amps is the service size.
Right. And the breaker specified was 300 amp, right? So you went up to a 400 amp. Is that part of the problem now that we're having with MedEd with the
Okay, no.
transformer because you guys upsized?
No, so the 400 amp service to the overall facility itself
Right.
is per design, per the application to MedEd, and per is what is installed. Underneath of that, there's a breakout of a 300 amp breaker that was in the design that was reduced to a 200 amp breaker. That feeds the package plant itself.
Right.
The 400 amps is the overall service to the site. That has not changed.
Main coming to the site.
The
Got
main
it.
coming to the site. That's where MedEd and their delay ends. So the change order number 2 is the change of that lower level, that 300 amp breaker to the 200 amp breaker in the panel that had already been fabricated.
Understood. So I guess my follow-up question to that is, at what point in the process that the subcontractor submitted his change order, and who's the approving authority for that change? Who approved the change order ahead of fact?
My electrical engineer drove the change and said, this has to happen. Based on the information about the panel when we received it. So the change was driven by the electrical engineer for the project, who's Snyder Hoffman Associates. The contractors moved forward with the change prior to requesting approval of the change order, again, to maintain our timeline.
So if I were reading the documents that put this whole package together, where does it state in the documents that the subcontractor can move ahead before a change order is authorized?
It does not.
It does not, right?
That's a risk that they chose to take to preserve your timeline.
Well, can I just ask, because maybe I'm missing something here. This panel didn't seem to have anything, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I'm reading, it didn't have anything to do with anything that had changed because of information found out once this project got started. It was, what is stated here is the lead times for the originally submitted electrical gear from Square D changed when the contractor got his equipment quoted and when he got it ordered, changing from 2 weeks to 3 months. So it's the same panel.
Correct.
It was just that he quoted it based on, hey, I can buy it at supplier A for this amount of money. And then in the process of getting it ordered, A all of a sudden couldn't deliver it anymore on time.
Correct.
So that was like, uh-oh, now you have to find another supplier to get this.
Correct.
So I can understand from a business perspective that sucks. Okay, like I get it. But that's what they're in the business for. Okay?
I told them the same thing.
So, if
In
they
May,
had
when
all of
they
a
called me
sudden,
with this, I told them that was how this committee was gonna feel. And I honestly refused to bring it to you in May ahead of the project because I told them it was going to put you in a disagreeable disposition toward the project as a whole.
and you were correct,
So
and
one of the reasons that I didn't bundle the 4 requests together was so that you guys would have the opportunity, if you chose to accept one or more or none. The contractor's perspective is that the delay in the material availability is a factor outside of his control, which typically the contract language, the AIA contract, does provide him some level of protection against changes that are out of his control. However, at the same time, contract doesn't give him the right to make a change without your approval, and then you are forced to live with, be forced to accept the change in price. He took a risk in making these changes. And again, the risk was taken in the interest of preserving your timeline.
well, yeah, but he also took a risk when he bid the project
Agreed?
that he went with obviously a supplier that was a much cheaper price.
Well, the
Okay.
Square D was the specified material.
Okay. Right. So, but what I'm saying is He bid the project based upon calling a supplier, and the supplier said, yeah, I give it to you for this amount of money. So then that went in with his pricing. So whether or not they had communications of, hey, you need to get this ordered so many times, I've only got one on the shelf, and if that one sells, you're not going to get it at that price. Like, that's a business decision and something they had to do. And I would not expect that if when they went to order it, they found it at a cheaper supplier, that they would be coming to us with a decrease because they were able to find it cheaper.
I don't disagree with that.
Okay, so I just,
Hold on, let
I
him finish his thought,
disagree
please.
with, I mean, I feel, I can have sympathy, okay, for the supplier being in this position, but that's part of being in business. That's part of doing this. They should have made sure that that product was going to be available at that price, or they should have had a contingency to say, well, we're going to have to maybe bump this up a little bit more because this timeline might be close and we might have to pay a little bit more for this. This would be the same as anything coming to us and saying, well, we only thought it was going to be X amount of hours to get this work done. And now it wound up being, 20 more hours for our subcontractor or our own employees. So now we're giving you a higher bill in order to meet the timeline that we already agreed to that we would have done. Like, I understand from their perspective, it's not comfortable, but that's part of doing business.
I can't disagree with you. And it really mirrors a conversation that I had with them. And again, I can only say that, the element of their position that has some merit to it is they are conveying to me that these changes in lead time are new and different and were not something that they were able to predict ahead of the project.
So a couple things. That would be in a perfect world, in my opinion. And again, coming from the business that we're in, this happens all the time. My question, Scott, would be, if he came for the approval, what would have been your answer for the approval? With the scenario that it wouldn't be available till September with the timeline that we had, would we have denied this change?
It's a really good question. I would have needed more information at the time.
Okay.
And based upon the information that I currently have, I would say this is not my problem. Go fix it. You signed a contract with us. You said that you would get it done within this time frame.
That's in a
And-
perfect world.
Well, that's in the real world when it comes to business.
So the second question or second point to make, again, potentially in defense of this contractor, the fact that he looked at an opportunity to save us money in an area where there was work that wasn't necessary to be done because there was something in place that was sufficient, offsetting that, in my opinion, is also speaking to the integrity of this contractor. So I don't know. Again, I didn't take issue with any of this, but you're entitled to your perspective as well. So,
The part I have issue with is the contractor took it upon himself to do the change order without requesting it first. So in other words, he just went ahead and did this and then submitted the paperwork for the change order. That is the part that I have the most issue with.
If
I could be on any job and I have my contract with my owner. And I go, hey, I've got a problem here. Would you sign up on this change order? And I'll explain to you X, Y, Z, Y. Oh, we didn't get that. We didn't get that notice. We didn't find out anything about that. And now we're having to say, hey, by the way, I went ahead with this. I didn't get any approvals, but look what I saved you.
So I will offer in their defense that given the district's meetings and the timeline of this project, that scenario is right next to impossible. If we had to come to a full stop for every one of these change orders to be approved, we wouldn't have a plant on site right now.
The difference here is finding out for 1,500 and 900 and change to $8,500, right? So we found out about the two first ones. Okay, the small peanuts, right? We'll move forward with it. But this particular one here, this is the one where, and I'll agree with Director Freeman. Yeah, the spec said, according to you, Crystal, square D. Shop around, find what's going on. And, or if you know for a fact that, hey, my supplier can't do it, then you'll notify Al, will notify our business director and say, hey, we've got an issue here, guys. We need to move forward on this. We'd get a phone call. We'd get something moving on our end. But it doesn't mean that all of a sudden, hey, by the way, here's a change order after the fact. And that's what I'm bringing up.
They notified me, and I told them that you wouldn't be receptive to that change order.
So they notified you, but you never notified us?
I did not.
Okay, so the intermediary, which was you, Crystal, you took it upon yourself not to notify us.
I instructed them that if they did it, it was at their own risk. And I told them that I
Okay.
was not going to bring you a change order in May for a project that had no work done on site because you were not going to accept it.
Well, you assume that we would not accept it.
I did.
Okay, so that's an assumption then on your part. So you assumed that we would not accept it, but you didn't forward that information to us to let us know about it.
I
And that's what
didn't
I'm
have
getting
the
at,
price
and
at
that's
that
exactly
point
what I'm
either.
getting at, okay? Because at the end of the day, we're managing, like the good director here stated, we manage the people's money. And the more information we have as soon as it happens, then we can go to the community and say, hey, by the way, this is what we had to do. But if we don't get that information in a timely manner, now I have to go back to the people and say, you know what, we're just gonna suck it up and take it on the chin. We, the people, will have to take it on the chin, all right? Information, communication, we understand is very critical in everything that we do. And at the end of the day, if we can get that in a timely manner, that would be ideal, right? So the contractor took it upon himself after you said, no, I'm not gonna form the committee here, and so he moves forward because he wanted to get it done. Kudos to him, moving it forward. Now, I don't know what his contingency percentage is on his project here to take care of business, but I'm sure he has one, whether it's 5, 7, or 10%. All contractors put a contingency on their contracts, right? But I'll go back to what I said earlier. We were not afforded the opportunity of the information when it happened in real time. And it stopped in your inbox. And it was not moved forward to us. So do we eat that, or does your company eat that? Or the contractor, right? Because you just told us you stopped it at your process there. Now, I want to be fair to everything going here. We appreciate the heavy lift that everything's going on to get this treatment plant done on time. But I have a business too on the outside. And I tell you what, if I don't communicate everything that's going on to my client, I'm going to eat it. And that's where I'm at.
Well, just from what I hear her saying, she communicated exactly what, at least I'm saying, I won't speak for anybody else, is that, we're not gonna look favorable towards that, so.
But it wasn't, we weren't afforded the information at the time or given the scenario leading up to that. I could never make a decision like that for a client, Scott, if I didn't just put it out there, regardless, if I know they're not going to go for that, I would have to at least get it out there and say, hey, this is what's happening, X, Y, Z. Please let us know which way you're going to go with this. If I'm not afforded the opportunity to look at the information, then that's an assumption.
So if I could summarize where I think we're at, if the committee would approve 1, 2, and 4, but not 3. Is that correct?
That's where I see myself at.
That's where I'm at. I'm just not speaking for anybody else.
So that's the majority of the.
It's 2-1, exactly. It's 2-1. Yes.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Okay.
I'll just add here that the timeline, they knew about it in March. No, they didn't know about it in March. They didn't know about it until the beginning of May. We didn't meet in May. We met in May, but it was the end of May.
Yeah.
So that would have been the only opportunity they would have had to tell us about it. And at that point, you were playing hardball with the contractor, saying that we wouldn't approve it in a yes meeting. Well, he went ahead and did it. And now it's coming back in July.
They actually
Asking for a change order.
submitted these change orders either late July or August. I mean, I didn't have any of the numbers.
I see August 6th up here, 8/6/2026. That's where I
Okay.
see it.
Yeah, well, that's sweet.
Oh,
Yeah.
but
Well, we spoke about it a week or two ago. So, I mean, I knew about it a couple weeks ago, you know, and that's not the issue. My position would not have changed. Okay.
Mhm.
You bid on a price, your contractor where you buy the stuff from couldn't deliver. That's not the school's problem. Okay. And if this was my own personal home and I was doing this at home, my answer would be exactly the same. You gave me a quote on equipment. Now, if in that quote, it said, this is subject to me being able to get this product, okay, at this price. And if I can't get it at this product at this price, it could be more, different story. But unless somebody's telling me that was in our contract.
That's not the structure of the contract.
Okay, so this would be, you know, so I'll take it out of the school board here. Okay, if I'm having a contractor do the work at my house, that's going to be my answer. In the same way that I wouldn't expect that contractor to give me a credit because maybe they were able to find another supplier after they quoted me and they were able to get it for less money. Now, if they wanted to do that to build goodwill and so on and so forth, that's another story, but I wouldn't expect that because they gave me a price. They told me the timeline they would get it done. I agreed to pay it.
These, as Linda says, these contract type of construction
Yeah.
is a little different rules than our own private. If they can prove, the contractor, that it was something beyond his control, we can't say no.
So I'm gonna disagree with that. So as a construction manager in New York City, where I used to work, bullshit. All right.
Okay.
You wrote up the contract. That's the way it was. Guess what? We held these guys at a time and they had to have a very damn good reason why they wanted to charge the owner that we were representing on the job.
Okay.
Excuse my
We
French.
provide estimates. We do not provide quotes. I'm just saying our business, because there are no guarantees. That is a perfect world. Doesn't happen. And particularly today, it is worse today than it was 20, 25 years ago. So let's move on.
All right, so 1,
Great.
2, and 4 will move forward.
Yes.
Wonderful.
So
Thank
what
you.
happens to 3?
Sits there for a while.
It sits there for a while. Okay.
Well, if you choose not to approve his request, he eats it. And that
So it'll
is,
go to the
he
full
was
board.
aware from the start that that was a risk that
3
he
will
took.
not go to the full board.
And this is not Twining, this is the electric contract.
Well, Twining is your
Choose who.
contract is with Twining. The electrical is his sub.
Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is bank depositories. This is an annual item. The only difference between last year and this year is TD Bank is falling off. We only had a very small presence at TD Bank, like $1,000. Their interest rate wasn't competitive. We closed it.
They used to be better.
No, not now. So we're recommending Penn Community Bank is where we have like the checking account relationship, and they also do money market for us. PA Treasurer Invest has a money market-like instrument that has very good rates. Pliget, we can do an overnight rate. We can do time deposits. Same thing with PA School District liquid asset. With any questions?
So I'm sorry, could you just restate? So you're looking to,
They want to remove TD Bank as a depository, as a bank.
remove TD Bank. Okay,
Right.
that's what, okay,
That's
that's
the
what I
only
thought.
difference.
I thought for a minute you were saying something with Penn Community. Remove.
No change to Penn Community.
Okay, yep, no, that's fine.
Yeah, it's up in TD.
Yeah, that's fine.
Good.
Good?
Yep.
Okay, the next 4 items are student services related.
I'm gonna take this, Chris?
Sure.
Sure. So these are renewal contracts. You've seen them before. Lou was not able to join us this morning as he's in a training with some teachers right now. But I did ask him, which is often a question of the committee and the board, how many students we have in each of these locations. So at Wood Services, we currently have one student that's being served by Wood Services, Woods Services. There's one student receiving their education through Lakeside. We do not currently have any students at LifeWorks. Those are the 3 schools. And then with Friends and Novi Associates, we've talked about this third-party vendor as well. This is a little bit different. We use their services in the event we're not able to fill an employment position. We post these positions, we try to fill them internally, When we're not able to do that, we'll use Brent Novi and others. This is the one that's up for renewal. And along those lines, the MOU that is next on the agenda, that's our agreement with the support staff to indicate that we do try to fill these positions and we'll continue to try to fill these positions internally. We keep them posted. But as we're getting, let me also mention with Brent Novi, we don't currently have any employees through Brent Novi, but as we get closer to the school year, which we are really close right now, we will likely use their services to fill vacant positions that we still have. Any questions on those 5 items?
What is your last date that you'll need to know to reach
Well,
out to them?
As soon as the board considers these
Oh.
on Wednesday, we'll likely reach out on Thursday.
Okay.
Fine with me.
Okay,
Thank you.
Yep.
So we will group these on the board
Thank
agenda.
you. Yep, I think we'll group,
The 3 schools.
correct. And then whenever we have like source for nurses, sometimes we have other nursing services. If we have other third-party vendors specifically for filling vacancies, we'll put those together as a consent agenda as well. But for this one, Brent Novi will be a standalone, but the 3 schools will be included together in the same motion.
Item 12 is IDBA. Idea. Oh, no, I think we covered the MOU.
Over IAs and
Yeah.
PTA, okay.
12 is IDB, use of funds agreement. This is an annual item. You are agreeing to use federal special education dollars for special education costs. It's that simple.
Agreed.
Any questions? Okay. Item 13, Colleen.
This is the Ever-Driven contract. We've been discussing this through the summer. This is an alternative for, craft. If we run into any issues with craft being able to fulfill, an example of, McKinney-Vento student, that we could, use this service, to offer that. I checked, Saul had asked me about checking with the Bucks County IU to see their usage, and they still use them. They also use a number of other companies, so, they use First All and a few other, ones that are popping up, so.
And they're very satisfied with this company.
They
And
are,
think
yep,
they're-
they're satisfied, yeah.
And did we have a problem last year with Kraft not being able to transport some things?
No, not a problem. I mean, I wouldn't say a problem. I mean, it'd make it a lot easier to have this, another option for us, but I didn't have an issue with finding anyone.
Okay. So, and I'm not that I have a problem with this, I'm just trying to understand. So like, where did this come from to then search out and decide
Well,
whether we should have
And
this?
a couple of other, districts have used Ever-Driven, so they had given me names when I called them for, because they're responsible for one side of McKinney-Vento, we do AM or something, they do PM. So I had asked them, who do they use if they aren't able to? Because I did have an issue with one of, I think it was, I don't know if it was Quakertown or Salisbury, but one of them said, oh, it's going to be really hard for us to get, that run. So I said, well, who do you use and that's where it started. The conversation started.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand if we have any concerns or there's anything going on with Kraft.
Well, I think Colleen had said last year there were 2 instances where you could have used this as a backup resource.
Sure.
And once
So-
again, I don't have I don't have a
Yeah.
problem. I'm just trying to, understand. And then my other thing, so 2 other questions would be, number 1, I assume this doesn't infringe upon any contract we have with Kraft.
No.
Okay. And then, how does the cost compare to Kraft being able to do, like, do you have an idea of like the same run? Would Kraft be the same price, less money?
It's comparable. It's
Okay.
comparable. Craft is a little bit less. So I would definitely use them first, but, it's not, I mean, it's probably a little bit more expensive than Kraft. Not a lot, but.
Okay, yeah, I just want to my thought process is, absolutely fine. We need to have the backup, so great to put it in place. I would just, as a board member, want to be aware if all of a sudden there does start to become an issue with Kraft being able to supply our contracted services, that we're aware of it and all of a sudden just don't get down the road and then be aware like, oh, well, here's this huge budget item because now we're paying this other company for these more difficult, possibly more difficult bus routes. And now all of a sudden our transportation expenses have gone up, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, definitely.
This type, this type service is one that's sort of off the side. It's it's an additional service that they provide, but they're not in the contract that they have to do it.
Mhm. Right.
Good. Item 14, lunch prices. Colleen?
Chris and I had talked about, our lunch prices being at, $3.25 for the middle school and high school and raising them 10 cents to $3.35 and elementary from $2.75 to $2.85. This is just the cost of things are going up. So we thought 10 cents is reasonable.
How does this compare to surrounding districts, and what does the Whitens have to say about it? So they have any?
Whitson's is on board with this. I did not look into other school districts. I can do that if you want me to.
I think 10 cents isn't too much.
No, my question was going to be,
As long as it's
where did the 10 cents come from? Or was it just
I thought that was fair.
We were trying to make a move without being overly burdensome on families.
Mhm.
So 10 cents, I would say, is probably on the lower end of the range.
Well, I just always love to have like a rationale, behind something.
Our expenses exceed revenues in food service. This is to help close the gap.
Right. So why not 13 cents? Why not 15 cents?
I was just thinking Jim.
I like round numbers.
Well,
You would not like 13.
12 and a half cents, So, yeah, no, my thing is, as I understand, that's where it's coming from. So that's why I just wanted to understand, like, first of all, thank you, for bringing this to us. But I mean, maybe it should be a little bit more, I think and I'm not saying it should or shouldn't, but I'd like to be able to say, if somebody asks me, well, why did you make it 10 cents? I'd like to be able to say more than, well, we thought it sounded good, if we, and I think like Jim's, well, how do we compare, to other districts? I'd like to hear, Whitson's could probably give us some information, even on that directly. But I think for, a middle school and high school lunch to be, $3.35, for lunch, as long as the food is, decent, I think that's a bargain. And for anybody that, is unable to afford it, well, we have provisions for that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but, then they already get that. So, yeah, that's only my question. If we're trying to make up a gap and we all know how expenses have gone up, is 10 cents, does that, make sense, or should it be, a couple cents more? So.
I think over the years, I've seen a quarter at a time, but that was quite a while ago.
Yeah, before COVID, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me just ask on timing from that, Scott. So if there were other regional, like what's happening, upper box in our region as far as lunch prices are concerned, if that came back for a fiscal discussion in September and then was on the September board meeting as opposed to the one on Wednesday, would that be a problem?
The free and reduced, letters went out and they do have the increase on there,
Okay.
of $3.35 and, $2.70 or $2.85. It probably would be
It would be,
because, yeah,
okay.
it's just because of the timing of it.
Okay, so with
So
that
there's-
in mind,
Yeah.
we could still bring those regional comparisons back
Yeah.
in September to take a look at how this compares. And then if there are changes mid-year or going into next year, then it can fall into that sort of range. I just wanted to know what the issue would be, and it seems there would be one.
There is some regulations
There's a
as to how
top,
much we can
correct.
raise.
Yeah.
Yes,
We're not near that at 10 cents.
but I don't know
guess.
how close we are.
Yes, I don't know either.
Okay, so how close we are to the upper limit, and then what lunch prices look like regionally. And then if we need to make mid-year adjustments.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, so and just for future reference, I mean, I'll only speak for myself, but if it ever comes to a committee that I'm on, like these are the kind of questions, going to be asking. So just, predetermined, I like to know where the numbers are, coming from. And then, yes, if we have limits by statute or something, that's always helpful. So thank you.
So on a semi-related, how's Whitson doing?
They're doing well. Yeah, Liz is doing really well. She's,
Especially for the last 2 months, right?
So
Yeah.
usage,
yeah, she was having a really good time. She was out in, Yosemite, but yeah, yeah, they're doing well.
people, the high schools on a plus side yet?
High school is not on, well, the end of fiscal year was not on the plus side, so
But it's
hopefully
better.
this year.
It is better
It is
though.
better.
Good.
It definitely is better.
We need more high schoolers to come to the high school,
I'm gonna come in and get some fresh,
right?
Yeah.
Took
Yeah,
some
just
cold milk
over,
somewhere.
yeah.
All right, we'll get that additional information before Wednesday.
Sure.
Item 15 is review of financial reports.
So, I just have a couple questions here. With this grant that came through for the Chief Science Office Department or whatever, I had asked at EPS, is the STEM Outreach Club the club that they oversee? Is that the name of it?
So it's
That the
chief
chief
science
science-
officers, yes. I'm not sure if I understood your question. Yes.
Well, so within this grant description,
Yes.
it sounds like they oversee a club organization. I don't see anything on our lists called Chief Science Officer.
Yeah.
So is it the STEM? That's what I'm,
The
what,
STEM club, it probably is one and the same, but I want to be sure of that.
okay.
This
So,
is Dylan Fidel and,
and Mark,
that he works with.
Yeah.
and the presentation.
Yeah.
This is a student activity fund.
so I guess.
Yes.
So, so my question is, I'm guessing that this grant money is, what do they call, I call it filtered. Does that flow through our accounts here at the school and then we disperse, or does the grant get paid directly to them from the Bucks County IU?
It comes through the school, but through the student activities fund.
So Bucks County IU will be paying Palisades, it'll go through the activity fund and be dispersed to these coaches, I believe is the term that they give them. Is that correct?
Colleen, is that how you see it working? So the IU has a portion of this grant go to the school district, and then I'm assuming you would then transfer those funds into that student activities account.
Correct. Yep, it'll go into student activities fund and then they
Right.
will disperse.
Okay, so a portion of it though is being paid to the coaches. So so does that go, in addition, that'll be on top of the EDRs that are already dispersed to those coaches? And
That's a
that'll
good
go,
question.
so
I
that
don't-
fund, there was an amount that was put in that grant. Is that gonna be split over these two coaches then, or do they each get that amount? It was $3,000. So is that split over the two coaches, or does that go 3,000 for each one? Over and
So you're
above the
looking at that?
EDRs?
I understand your question.
You see
I do.
the question? So, and if I understand, this grant was for is it 1 year? The 1 year, right? So that would be the additional funds for that year.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. I'm just curious about that. I would like to know.
So let me just clarify again. Is your question, I understand the question, like, is that grant funding our EDR folks?
Yep.
In part, yep.
Yep.
But also, if there was a question, if we have an EDR for our chief science officers, was your other question, are these funds above and beyond that?
Correct. And there, I have not found a line that says chief science officers.
Okay,
It's
I
only
understand.
the STEM club.
Yep, yep.
So, correct. So, and then I'm wondering if that amount is divided over the two of them.
Okay.
So I am curious about that.
Got it.
And my other question, though it's not on this, but it is on the personnel page for Wednesday, was about the game workers and the fitness center. There's a big, long list of names for individuals involved with all of that. Are those paid EDRs?
They are.
Okay.
Yeah, so these are our ticket takers in the stadium. These are our folks that work the fitness center where the community comes in.
Okay, and I did not see any of that in the EDR lists. So where do I find that?
Game workers. I mean, we have like
It could be
a
athletic.
chart of,
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
happened.
make sure those would be under athletic. EDRs.
Game workers.
So just, I'm not sure if that makes any difference in where you
The
were
only thing
looking.
I saw
but-
in EDRs were coaches and assistant coaches. I saw
Okay.
nothing of game workers and this fitness center. I did not see those
They're
terms anywhere.
I
actually,
don't think
well,
that's an EDR.
they
Maybe
would
a
not fall,
contract.
they
Yeah,
wouldn't fall under, let me get that for you too, Linda,
Okay,
just so
okay.
I understand the questions you're asking. I'll get
Yeah,
that for you.
I'm baffled. I'm just not sure where that's coming from.
Yeah.
Okay, so those were that. On the list, are we at financial reports? Is that where we are? Right?
Yes.
Financial reports. Okay. I did see on a couple line items that were pretty significant under the 1110 regular ed under 700. We're at 927, percent. Now that does say property. Does that have to do with some of the work that we're having done right now, or what is that for? The amount, I don't have the amount listed.
You're saying that it's overspent the budget.
It's the budget. Yeah, I was looking at the percent of the budget for now already.
There'll be some
So-
transfers to take care of that, I would think.
yeah.
So on the
We'll get to
documents that came out to us, it's page 1 of 34 or page 5 of the attachment. So, but it is the category 1110, regular ed, and then 700. But the percent was like 927.
What's the total dollar spent?
I didn't write that down.
Mm.
I did on some of the others, but not on that one.
Can we get back to you on that?
Yeah,
Before
sure.
Wednesday?
Check that.
Okay, the other one was the autistic line, under 1233, 600 supplies. That one's out of 564%. So I was wondering again as well, if that is to get us up and going to start that whole
It is.
program, right? But at 567%, obviously that's over budget, no?
Of that-
Am I
of that
reading that
line,
wrong?
yes.
Right?
Of that line.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll check that out as well.
Okay, all right. I did see that we purchased that mower and projectors. So those were my only two
Mower
things
and projectors were on the approved list of equipment.
for, it was on the capital.
It
yeah,
was.
And the other stuff, correct. Which takes me to goals, because that is one of my things. I would like to see us keeping track of the things that are checked off, that are done.
Great.
Okay, that's it for me.
Next item is prior month expenditures to date. We're at 5.24% of the budget. Last year at this time, we were at 5.79% of the budget, and the year before that at 5.5% of the budget. So we're kind of in the mix. We're at 3.1 million compared to 3.3 million last year. The difference is really in the capital projects. Then we have the right to know request report. I don't think there's anything extraordinary on it to make you aware of.
Number 1 said see addendum or something like that. Where do you find that?
Let me look it up real quick.
I had no idea like what that one was even for.
Okay, Number one was about, they wanted logs of internet traffic and internet filtering. It was a 5-part request, but it really came down to logs of activity. We were not able to provide everything that they asked for. And for some security reasons, we denied some of the requests. The rest of the requests, typically at summary level information, we were able to bring.
Okay, so it was internet traffic and securities, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And item 18 is the economic update. The state received more revenues in July of 26 than they did in July of 25. And that completes our agenda and takes us to public comment.
Can I just add something quickly from Linda's comment about the project progress and completion?
Uh-huh.
You okay if we add that to buildings and grounds? That's usually where we cover like where things are happening and how close.
Yeah,
we
for a
are
capital
that-
project, if that's
Is there
what she meant.
something
I
different
do,
than
yeah, I do see them overlapping though, gentlemen. I mean, when we have them on a fiscal list and we're kind of trying to keep track of how that money's being spent for transparency purposes, I do see it overlap. I mean, that's fine if we do that, but
I just wanted
somewhere
clarification.
I wanna, because I wanna be able to look at the amounts that we've said and then see what we've used for that
I
kind
see
of
that as a buildings and grounds.
thing. Okay,
Yeah, I mean, maybe what we could just do with this agenda is the minutes or something, or the progress report from buildings and ground be attached to this agenda just for information. Would that help at all?
you mean this one attached to buildings and grounds?
This usually happens
I would think-
Well, I understand that, but
Yeah.
we're saying the updates happens there, so I realize it would be a month behind.
This, I would see this being attached to buildings and grounds for next week.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Except, but my head, I'm just wrapping around is that buildings and ground isn't asking for the information from fiscal.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
It's the last part of it.
right, so
not
I
the
mean,
First part of the process.
So I think there's
I
two
don't
things.
care
We
how it
usually
gets
talk
tied.
about, we, at
Just
buildings
so
and
it's
grounds,
tied.
we usually say, we're with the permits, this is how
Right.
far we are and so on. But Linda's saying, what percentage of that allocation has been spent at this point during the year? So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
could be something we could add to buildings and grounds to say, we allocated $100
Yeah.
to this project. At this point in the year, we've spent 5% of it, we spent
Yeah.
20%, whatever.
Just for tracking, yeah.
I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I also just don't want to bog you guys down with, with extra work.
I think
So.
I think
But
it's
that's
helpful
fine.
to be able to
Okay.
share it in that way.
Okay.
Okay.
If I could, and Linda, you brought this up, so it triggered this with me, is I would like at a future fiscal meeting, if it's okay, Chairman, that we actually review the fitness center and the costs there. So we've done that in previous years, but I haven't seen that, or at least that I remember in quite some time.
So costs associated with keeping it open, Scott, when you say costs?
Well, in particular, and like I said, what triggered is what Linda said with paying the workers to be there. It has come up in years past of what does it cost us to keep it open to the community? And does that make sense?
And there's maintenance on the equipment too.
And maintenance on the equipment. So certainly not should we have a fitness, thing for our students, but more like, what are the and maybe there aren't any. I mean, I don't know, maybe we pay the fitness work, maybe we pay the people to be there and that's when our students are there. So maybe it's a wash. I don't know. I don't think so. Yes, but I'm leaving it open. But I know we've reviewed that in the past and at least it's, been something that we've discussed. So.
Are we done?
Questions?
I'm done.
Anything? Ma'am?
Just to bounce off of the community fitness center, obviously I was involved with that, so I know. Not to forget that PCF donated we spent at least $30,000 to donate equipment to that center, given that the community would be able to use that fitness center. We have not broken even with the fees that we charge the community and the cost of workers ever that I recall. I think the idea was just providing the opportunity for our community to continue to practice good health if they choose. So, I mean, you'll get your numbers and you'll see what it is. The only other thing I'd like to mention is that the fitness center, there are fitness center worker fees that are charged to that account that cover our students working out up until, I don't know, 5:30, let's say, and then 6 o'clock, the community takes over, and that's a different line item. Just when you're looking at those numbers, you can see those comparisons.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
My name's Rebecca Prendergast. I have 3 kids currently in Palisades. One's driving to college right now. And I'm running for state representative for this district. And my question to you guys is, what could Harrisburg be doing more of or better for?
More money.
I know it's very
Pass the budget on
general,
time.
not just for, you, but for the students, the taxpayers, just, any feedback I can get from you guys, since you're very fiscally responsible, it appears, just by listening into your conversations here today, which I appreciate very much, the care that you're taking with spending the taxpayer dollars. Just, any feedback.
I have all sorts of legislative.
There you go. Charter school fixed
I can
rates.
certainly reach out to you.
Yeah.
A lot of charter school funding reform issues, and a lot has been done. I have to say, over the past 2 years, I would say that there has been movement in those areas. More recently, I've also been sharing just a minor thing, which I will follow back up on, is the weapons notification piece has caused our community some concern. So just some tweaks to that. Certainly continuing to notify our community if there is a weapon found.
It seems like every day there's an email.
Yes, from me about that.
Yeah, it's a lot.
To meet the guidelines, yeah,
Correct,
not just because you think
correct.
it's fun,
Yeah, so I can certainly share some others, but again, budget on time is always appreciated, to put it mildly. Yeah, I can certainly have some.
Yeah, I mean, please, I'll give you my information.
Great, thank you.
Which the school already has on file, but anything else from you guys? No pressing concerns. Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the inputs.
No, thanks, absolutely.
Anyone else for the good? I have one final thing here. We discussed it in one of our previous meetings, goals for this committee. And I want us to go over this. Scott wasn't there before. I'll let him just look at that a little bit. But I think to improve what we do here and how we work together, I think we have more definitive goals, and something we can reference all the time will help us out. One of them was budget development and oversight. That's something that we work on all the time. All right, just get more in depth on that. Okay, financial transparency and communication. Can we be better at that? Sure, absolutely. I think we can be better at that. We try hard at that. We just need to articulate a little bit better and inform the community of what our proceedings will be moving forward based on the fact that we will have some sort of events we'll be working on in the near future. Okay, resource optimization. Chris brings it up all the time. We're in an inflationary period. It's not going to get better. If you look at your history, war always raises the inflation rate. We got a lot of crap happening, not on our land, but overseas, and it's a drain on our resources. Personally, I think they're going to try to keep gas below $4 until the midterms, and then after that, good luck, okay? Honestly, everything is shipped by diesel, and we're going to be paying more for supplies down the road after the midterms. I think they're fighting like hell to keep that gas below that magical $4 number. So be prepared.
Diesel's 5 1/4.
Oh, I know diesel's 5 1/4, and so just it's coming. Risk management and compliance. We talked about that kind of today when we're looking for bond issues, right? Are we gonna, what are we gonna do with that? Okay? So just look in there. Measurable performance indicators. 5-year capital improvement plan. We've discussed that last year. I think we need to get, not I think, I know we get to get more in the weeds on that, okay? Let's have a definitive plan on where we're going. And that goes to the bond issue as well. Where's the money going? If you have a definitive 5-year plan, then we'll know exactly what's going. So, fund balance, reserve goals. You brought that up, Linda. It did not fall on deaf ears. We have different categories in our fund balance reserve. Chris is gonna break that out for us. We're gonna have those numbers, okay? Increasing stakeholder satisfaction scores. Well, stakeholders are our community. Thank you for showing up, ladies. I appreciate that. And I keep on talking about a climate survey. We'll find out more if we actually do one, okay? And submitting accurately quarterly financial reports. We in the school board have been asking for quarterly financial or quarterly meetings. Well, this is something that we can bring up, especially for those other board members that cannot attend our morning monthly meeting due to work, which is absolutely fine. So I think we have discussed that enough, and I hope to see that we can do some sort of quarterly financial report where we all can get together after school. You know, I don't want to keep Chris or whoever too late here. Come from an hour quarterly, you know, just go over what we need to do. Invite, the public is invited, and go over some hard numbers. So please take a good look at this. Please bring back your feedback. We'll discuss it more and then we'll move forward here. Okay. As I tell my children, if it's not written down, it never happened. Tell me what you want to do. Okay. So let's see if we can't get something here. Okay. And thank you, everybody, for coming out on your valuable summer day. Any other things for the good of the cause? Have a great day.